Hey guys, welcome to the Vendas B2B Summit. Today is a very special day. I've been following Steli's work for years and I'm a huge fan. For those who live on another planet and don't know Steli, he's the CEO of Close.io, the inside sales CRM of choice for startups and SMBs. He's a Silicon Valley's most prominent sales expert. He's alumni of Y Combinator, advisor to several startups, international keynote speaker, author of 6 books on startups and sales, and he also co-hosts the Startup Chat podcast with Hitan Shan. Steli, thank you very much, and welcome to Brazil.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm pumped.
Well, before we start, can you fill some gaps and tell us a little bit about your professional background and your journey at Close.io?
Yeah, professional is a big word for my background, but I am originally from Greece, but I grew up in Germany. So those are very different cultures that had to be united. And came in a typical immigrant factory worker family. Nobody in my family had ever received a higher education, and I was determined to keep that tradition alive. I hated school growing up. So when I was 17, 18, I dropped out of school and I started my first small business, or started being entrepreneurial and self-employed, and never had a real job in my life since then. So when people ask me, Steli, how did you decide to become a serial entrepreneur? I always tell people, lack of options, right? I have zero credentials. Nobody would ever hire me. So I always had to start a business to be employed myself. So I did a few small businesses back in Europe, all kind of self-funded, bootstrapped, nothing to do with technology. Did well with a few of them. And then now almost 11 years ago, I had an idea for a tech company. And since I had no background in technology or software, knew nothing about it, I decided to sell everything I had. I bought a one-way ticket to San Francisco, and I thought I'll come to Silicon Valley and change the world. And don't want to ruin the surprise or suspense, but the first startup didn't quite work out the way I thought it would. It was a 5-year, failure, soul-crushing defeat. And then the second startup that I started...
Big learning experience, right?
Big learning experience, for sure. And then the second thing I started with a few twists and turns, turned out pretty all right, is the company that I'm running today. We started as Elastic Sales, which was doing outsourced sales for B2B, venture-backed B2B startups here in Silicon Valley. And we basically came up with sales strategies and built sales teams for over 200 venture-backed startups. And during that process, we built an internal piece of software to help our salespeople close more deals, drive more revenue, be more productive. And that internal tool eventually became so successful that we decided to launch it as a separate product. And that outgrew the services company really quickly. And that's the company we're running today, called Close.io, which is an inside sales CRM helping lots of startups all around the world to sell more and drive more revenue. And yeah, entrepreneurship and sales, that's kind of what's in my heart and what I care deeply and dearly about. And that's why I'm invited to events like this to hopefully help as many founders as possible with it.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, today we're going to talk about how to create scalable sales process and master outbound selling. I've been advising and teaching many Brazilian companies the last years, and I want to start with a question about sales process. 99% of them have a company-centric sales process or a sales-centric process. Their sales process and their CRM stages represent what the salespeople do and not what the prospect or the potential customers do. I've been talking and reading a lot about it, and experts like Dave Scott and many others say that the only way to build a sales and marketing process is to design it around the customers, like a customer-centric process. You, as a CEO of a CRM company and advisor, probably have helped hundreds or thousands of companies to build their sales processes. Do you think that the customer-centric approach is always the right way? Is that something that your clients struggle to, or it's not even your agenda?
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with Dave. And we just spent an evening having dinner in where was it? In Canada, in Ottawa, at a SaaS conference just a few weeks ago. So I think that this customer-centric model, it goes beyond just sales and marketing. Being more customer-focused. Like I've never seen a company that was too customer-centric, right? The problem I see in most startups and founders is that they're not thinking enough about their customer. They don't understand their customer well enough. They haven't defined their customer narrowly and clearly enough. And hence, whatever they do is going past the target, right? Is not really hitting the customer in the heart and in the mind in a way that is effective. I see this all the time. I teach many companies in how to improve their sales process. Technical parts of that could be the way they write sales emails or the way that they create a design a sales call or a demo. And every single time I tell them, think about the email as a product. Think about the user experience of that product. Don't think about your selfish needs. Oh, I want to get people to schedule calls with me, so I'm going to write an email so I can get calls scheduled. Ask yourself, who's the person that's receiving the email? When is it in their inbox? How does their inbox look like? How many emails do they get? What kinds of emails do they get? What subject lines do they get? How much time do they have? What are their struggles and problems? When they open your email, how do they feel? How long does it take for them to understand what you want from them? When you think about the customer and their experience when they receive an email from you, and you go step by step, what's the first thing people do? They go, what is this email about? And who is this person that's emailing me? And then they think, okay, what do they want to sell me something? What is this? Then they go, well, why is this credible? Like, okay, now I understand what you're doing, what you want from me. Why should I believe you? Why is this credible? And then the last thing they think about is like, all right, so what do you want from me now? What's my reaction? What is the action item you want from me? If you go through that journey and you anticipate, then you write killer emails. And your emails are really great, not because you had some funny GIF in them or not because you used some crazy, interesting tactic. It's because you empathize with the customer. And when I feel understood by you, when I read an email that goes, oh my God, this person knows how I feel and what I need, I'll respond, right? Same thing on a cold call. If I pick up the phone, what's the first thing I have on my mind? Who the hell is this and what do they want from me, right? And do they want to sell me something? If you don't address these three things at the beginning of your call, you lost already at the hello. Like you lost me at the hello. But people don't think about who am I calling? What does their day look like? When they pick up the phone, what is their thought process? They only think about, I want to schedule a demo. I need to call to schedule a demo. When you're selfish in that way, when everything you do, you just ask yourself, what do I want? You're never able to give people what they want. And if you can't give your customers what they want, they'll never be your customers, right? They'll be a customer of somebody who can give them what they want. So I think from writing emails to writing blog posts to making cold calls to designing software and products to offering support to your pricing structure, everything you do needs to start with who am I serving and what do they need to be successful. And if you go backwards from a customer perspective, working your way back to your company and your team, you're always going to do well. It's when you start with yourself and your selfish needs and you progress from there that you may hit your target, but more often than not, you're going to be past them.
I love the knowledge of thinking the email or the phone call as a product and thinking about the customer experience. I think this mindset may change the game. And when we are doing outbound, there's always a segment or a sub-segment of the market that it's easier to sell. It's cheaper, it's faster, and also that they have a higher chance of achieving success with your product. What Aaron Ross called ICP. What is your method of finding what is the perfect client, like the ideal customer profile, before starting an outbound strategy?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it goes in different stages, right? So the first 10 customers, you really just try to get whoever you can, right? And because you don't know yet who your ideal customer is going to be, I think it is worth having a hypothesis. It's worth defining your niche very narrowly. Too many startups, they try to define it too broadly. I ask them, who's your ideal customer? And they go, any company between 5 and 5,000 employees. I'm like, well, no shit. right? That is giving me a very clear picture. I don't know. It's like saying, what's your type of person you want to date? And you tell me, well, somebody who breathes and, has long hair. Cool. That is not narrow enough, right? That's so broad. It includes too many very different types of people. So too many times startups don't like defining their niche too small because they're afraid that that's not exciting. But I'm excited. If your niche is so small that it's just 5 companies, that's awesome, because it's easy for us to identify who those 5 companies are. Once we get what the problems are, what kind of marketing material they read, what kind of budget they have, all these things are easy to figure out. And then once you have those, if you serve them well, you draw a small circle around them and you ask who is closely related to those types of customers. And you go broader and broader until eventually maybe you'll have a circle and a niche that's so big it includes the entire planet, right? But you start narrow and focus and then you go broad. I think, so first 10 customers, you're going to have to experiment. You really don't know. 10 to 100, I think that's the sweet spot where you start to really narrow down on like, who's our ideal customer. The way that I would do this is not necessarily who has the most money. It's not necessarily who's the easiest to reach. It's not necessarily who's the most enthusiastic about our solution. All these things are nice, but they're not necessarily who your ideal customer is. I think when it comes to ideal customer, you need to ask yourself, who is the customer that we can make the most successful? Let's say we have 100 customers, I would ask myself, who are my 10 most successful customers? Successful is not happy. Those are related things, but they're not the same thing. Successful to me means who gets a lot more value from my solution product than what they're paying me and realizes it, right? So they might be getting a shit ton of value from your solution, but they might not be aware of it. They might not be able to measure that value. They might go, well, we're paying for it. We don't really know if it works, right? So they need to know that it works, and they need to know that it brings them so much more value than what they've paid. Whoever you make the most successful with that criteria is your ideal customer today. And based on that, I would then ask myself, how can we find a lot more of these types of customers? Because if one successful customer is really worth 100 mediocre successful customers or happy customers. A happy customer is somebody that individually might just prefer your solution, but they cannot really identify if it's worth it or if it brings a return. And if that champion within the business leaves, and somebody else comes into their position, you need to ask yourself, is that new hire, that new person, when they're going to try to figure out, why are we paying for this software? What is it doing? How easy is it going to be for them to get to an answer that tells them to keep paying? And if they go, I don't get it. Why are we paying for this? This is shit. Let's cancel. Then that's the worth of a happy customer. Happy customer meaning somebody in that company likes you, right? What you want is a successful customer, so successful that even if your champion or your buyer leaves the business and somebody else comes, within minutes, they can figure out that, no shit, this software is really, really, really valuable. We should keep paying for it. That type of a customer is going to give you great feedback. That type of a customer is going to keep staying and have amazing retention. That customer is going to give you great case studies, great reviews. That customer is going to give you referrals. That customer is going to expand. So it gives you a great lifetime value for whatever the customer acquisition cost was. That's the type of customer, even if you just have few of them, that's the foundational customer you can build a massive organization or business on. You could have 1,000 shitty customers and you're just in trouble. You're in a worse place than when you had 0 customers, because you have customers that are going to be complaining, going to give you bad feedback. They're going to be giving you bad reviews. They're going to be telling other companies, don't buy the software. It sucks. We're about to leave. They're going to be churning. They're going to be crushing your internal morale. They're going to be pointing your product team in the wrong direction. They're going to be setting yourself up for a lot of trouble. So to me, your ideal customer, the way to identify that is to try to search for your most successful customer. Not the happiest, but the most successful. And I find that many startups, they confuse those two. They're drawn towards the happy ones because they're loud and they're easy to talk to, and they ignore the successful ones. And that can be a detrimental factor down the line, a year, 2 years down the line. If you pick the wrong customer to focus on, it might be the end of your company. It might really make the difference between success and failure as a business.
No, that's amazing. We have a customer success track in the event. And we're trying to create this mindset on the salespeople about success. It's not the same thing that happiness, and for the salespeople start to think this even before closing the deal. This customer is really gonna have success with our solution. It's not an easy battle, but we're trying. Steli, a fun fact about sellers and buyers in Brazil: we are very, very friendly people, and we hate to say no. So our prospects hate to say no. That doesn't mean that they're going to buy from you. That just means they're gonna stall and disappear without giving you an answer. How would you qualify prospects in a context like that?
Yeah, I know that Brazilians are awesomely nice people. We have a Brazilian on the team,
Really?
Vitor. Shout out to Vitor. One of our engineers is from Brazil. So I think when you work in a culture, when you sell in a culture where people are not necessarily wanting to deal with rejecting you or telling you no on confrontation, they're not confrontational. In those cultures, you just have to learn to read between the lines. You just need to learn to read the yes as not just take it for its word value, but to take the contextual value around it and interpret a yes as a maybe, or in many cases, a yes as a no, right? So the important thing is not to blame the customer, not to have like a blame mindset that's like, oh, in Brazil, it's really hard because people won't tell me, well, motherfucker, if you live in Brazil and you're Brazilian, you should know your own culture well enough to figure out if somebody says yes but is bullshitting you, right? And actually means no or maybe. So one is to just pick up on clues. How enthusiastically does somebody say yes when they mean yes versus how timid is their yes when they mean maybe? You know, are they saying, yes, absolutely, we're going to do it? Are they saying, yeah, we're going to look into it, right? I mean, it is your job to pay attention. And I find that a lot of salespeople, just like as a lot of entrepreneurs, we are such optimists by nature. We need to be, otherwise we'd hang ourselves, that we look at every little sign to point towards this is going to work. So we are not fine-tuned enough to see when the yes is a no. We want to take that yes and believe in it. Well, then it's not really the prospect's fault. It's your fault for not interpreting the yes well enough, not following up enough, or not asking the tough enough questions, right? So it might just be that if I tell somebody something very broad, hey, you know, what Close does is we are an inside sales CRM that helps startups close more deals. And the prospect tells me, this sounds like a perfect fit, we are going to buy. I am not getting excited. I'm actually getting concerned. In that moment, my natural reaction is not, awesome, another deal on our customer. No, my natural reaction is, what's wrong with this person? I haven't said anything yet, right? So something is wrong here. And now I'm going to go, that's great to hear. Tell me, why do you think we're the right solution? What other solutions have you looked for? What are the things that are the most important to you in choosing the right solution? How much budget do you have? I'm going to qualify you. I'm trying to figure out how the hell did you make a determination that if a buyer is too easily enthusiastic, that's not a good saying yes to everybody. It's like trying to find your perfect husband or wife, and all you said is hello. The person turns around and says, I love you, I want to get married. Are you excited or are you afraid of that person? Most normal human beings would get a little concerned that this person wants to get married at the hello, right? So your way of dealing with people that don't want to say no is to learn to listen, to pay attention to body language, to tonality, to context, and to get the clues that then helps you determine if they're really interested or if they just want to be polite.
Great tips. I will try. Well,
don't try, do it.
Steli, not too long ago, I had a mentor who taught me about how important it is to take control of the sale. I think was one of the most transformative lessons that I had, but it's not always easy to do it. What suggestions can you give us about how to get in control and don't end up as a free consultant chasing prospects around giving advice?
So I'll give you one simple technique, which is what I call the virtual close. Once you've determined that they are qualified to be a successful customer, what they need is something you can provide to them. Then you should ask them this simple question: what is it going to take for you to become a customer of ours? Hey, it sounds like there's a mutual fit. It sounds like what you need is something we can provide in an incredible quality. Let me ask you, what is it going to take for you to become a customer of ours? That's the first step is you ask the question, what is it going to take for you to become a customer? It's a magical question. Then the second part is to follow up with follow-up questions until you arrive at a virtual point in the future where they are customers. So I ask, hey, what is it going to take for you to become a customer of ours? And the prospect goes, well, I need to take this information, bring it to my team, and discuss it with them. Most salespeople will just stop there and go, oh, that sounds great. We're happy to hear back from you. Don't do that shit, right? Ask the follow-up question. Okay, so once you meet with your team and you talk to them, let's say the conversation goes well. What typically happens next? What's the next step? Well, then the next step is to jump on another call with more stakeholders, ask more questions to determine if this really is the right solution. Okay, let's say that call goes well. What happens next? Well, the prospect goes, well, the next we should put together a pilot plan. Again, most salespeople at this point will abandon, jump ship, go. That sounds great. Talk to people, another call, and then pilot. I'm excited. Goodbye. Don't do that shit. Keep following up until you arrive at the virtual close. So I'll go, all right. So once, let's say, what does a pilot look like? How long does it typically take? What's your budget? I'll ask a few questions. Let's say the pilot goes really, really well. What typically happens next? Are we in business? Well, no. Then you have to talk to the legal department. Okay. Once we talk to legal, are we in business? No. Now you have to talk to the procurement department. Okay. Now that we talk to procurement department, what happens next? Well, next you have to talk to my grandmother. She needs to read your palm and your future and tell me if she likes you. All right. And now that we talk to grandma, what happens next? Are we in business? Yes. Then we are in business. Boom. Now what you have is a roadmap. You know all the steps it's going to take from interest and qualification to them becoming a customer. Now that we have a roadmap, we can determine, are there red flags? Do they want things from us we don't know how to give them or we don't want to give them? How long will this take? How many people, departments, individuals are going to be involved? I heard this all the time. Steli, we're going to close this massive deal next week. The week passes, I send a follow-up email, I go, crickets, dude, what happened with that deal? I haven't heard anything from you. Well, there was a little surprise and a little delay. I asked, what is the surprise and the delay? Well, we still have to talk to the legal department. I go, legal department isn't a fucking surprise. Talking to legal is not a surprise. It's not like there was a fucking tornado. Surprise, everybody was surprised. Legal department is the most obvious thing you'll have to do. You just didn't do your homework. You never asked the questions to understand what the deal will take. So every single step is a fucking surprise to you. You're like, oh, one more call and we'll close them. And then when the call is over, they're like, well, let's do a pilot. Okay, the pilot, but then we're going to have them as customers. And when the pilot is over, they're like, well, let's talk to legal. Yeah, what the fuck? Well, once we have talked to legal, surely we're going to be in business. Well, now that we've gone through legal 4 months, now we'll talk to procurement department. And a deal you thought will close in January is still open in December, right? That shit, that being out of control, never knowing what it's going to take. The easiest way to fix that is to ask the simple question, what is it going to take for you to become a customer? And then to follow up until they say yes. And once we've gone through these 7 steps, then we typically buy your product. Now you know what's going on, and now you can manage the process and be in control of the process.
Great. Well, that's a really, really good way to think about it. Constructing this roadmap actually makes everything really easy. Knowing all the steps you have to do give you a lot of control. Another thing that I want to ask you, Steli, is about follow-up. You talk a lot about follow-up. I've heard you talking about your follow-up philosophy of never, ever, ever stopping following until getting a response. My question is, how can we add value in each of these interactions? And don't you think that we should have follow-up cadences pre-constructed for the salespeople? And where is the line between being consistent and being annoying and follow-up?
Yeah, so let's address that question first. So first, the follow-up philosophy that I have and the follow-up advice that I give is the highest ROI piece of advice I give, measured by the millions and millions of dollars of deals closed, venture funding raised, things people have accomplished. Some people found their wives by following my follow-up advice. The amount of value I've created by this piece of advice is nothing compared to any other piece of advice that I give. And honestly, I'm over talking about it. I wrote a whole book on the follow-up strategy, but I still keep talking about it because I know how transformative it is for people. Let's talk a little bit about the annoying part versus persistence. Listen, in my mind, my number one job is not to be liked or not to be annoying. My number one job is to create value in the world, to bring something of value to this planet, to the marketplace. If I have 10 prospects that talk to me, I'd rather have 6 of them hate me and 4 of them do big business with me and create a lot of value than have 10 that are equally indifferent about my existence and have forgotten that they talked to me 10 years ago or a year ago, right? To me, talking to you, sending emails, having calls, having meetings, and then nothing was accomplished, but it was all very pleasant, is the biggest value destruction I can participate in, right? So I'm not concerned. I like to be liked, don't get me wrong. I want to be liked just like everybody else, but it's not my number one priority. My number one priority is to create value. So when we have a warm interaction, when we had a phone call, a meeting, when there was interest, when it seemed like there was a mutual fit, my follow-up philosophy is I will follow up forever until a result is generated. Yes is good, no is good. Maybe is where startups go to die. Maybe is where sales careers go to die, right? My job is to create an outcome, yes or no. But maybe, I don't know, they have some interest. I'm not sure what's next going to happen. I'm going to be waiting. We will hear back from them. That is not an outcome, right? So I'm going to create an outcome. When people go quiet on me, my interpretation is not they're rejecting me, they hate me, they think I'm dumb, they think I'm ugly, they're laughing about me, they're annoyed by me. I'm not a fucking mind reader, and I'm not going to come up with these bad stories. My simple hypothesis when somebody goes quiet on me is they are busy. Simple as that. They're busy. They have another priority in life. I'm not the center of their universe, right? So they might have gotten sick. They might be, going through a divorce. The company might go through some struggle. Something else happened. Something is more important than me. They forgot about it. Whatever. They're busy. My job is to champion the relationship to an outcome, to come back to them again and again until the time is right for them to let me know what's going on. If you tell me no, I'll leave them alone. But if you ignore me, I'm not leaving you alone. I'm going to get back in touch with you until you have a moment to tell me what the next step is or what's going on with you. And you can do a lot of things to structure the follow-up really beautifully and effectively. And for people who are interested, send me an email, Steli@close.io. I'll send you my book. By the way, if you want any of my books, I have like 6 books on follow-up, on how to do demo, how to do outbound. You'll get all of them for free. Just send me an email, Steli@close.io, subject line, bundle motherfucker, and I'll send you a link. You'll get all my stuff for free. But the philosophy is I'll follow up until the time is right for the other person to tell me what's going on. Every week I get emails from people. Steli, I follow up with somebody 30 times. We just closed $1 million deal. Steli, I follow up with somebody 11 times. They just responded and set up an appointment. They all tell me they just follow the simple philosophy and they're getting results. So I know that this is working. When it comes to outbound, cold relationship, you never told me yes. We never had a call. We never had a meeting. You don't even know who the fuck I am. I just emailed you, right? I don't think that in those situations, I have the social capital to follow up with you forever, right? I don't. So my basic philosophy there is that if I get in touch with you cold, I'll follow up 6 to 8 times, and then I'll leave you alone, right? And if I'm not ready to do that, I'm not going to send you even a single email, right? Again, because when I send you that email, I don't know if you're on vacation. I don't know if that is the day you launch a new feature and you get 5,000 emails and my email disappears in inbox nirvana. I cannot assume that you're going to have the time to look at it, read it, consider it, contemplate it, and make a decision, but just not want to tell me, because when you don't respond, your decision is clear that you don't want to talk to me. I can't make that up. So I'm going to get in touch with you a few more times. The way I want to deliver value is not by including some fun facts or adding white papers or saying, oh, I read this interesting article about SaaS. Maybe you want to read it. I'm nothing against that stuff. But my philosophy in creating value for you is coming back to what we said earlier, is understanding who you are, what your experience is, and trying to craft an email that has empathy and that is contextually relevant. That's the most valuable thing I can do for you, not including 3 videos of some TED Talks I saw that I think you might find interesting. I mean, that shit is interesting. It's fine, but I get these emails all the time, and I'm like, people, I have enough articles to read. I don't need you to send me a fucking article. Like, that's not the way to create value in my life. The way to create value in my life is to write an email that's short, precise, tells me who you are, what the fuck you want, and why I should care. When you do that, I pay attention. Most people don't. So, even if you send 8 follow-up emails, and all they say is, hey, Steli, want to check in again? Want to talk Tuesday or Thursday? I appreciate the brevity of that. Right? I'll the 5th time you send this, I'll go, this motherfucker is persistent, but is short and simple, and I will reply and go, thanks, but no thanks. Really like your follow-up hustle. Best of luck, but this product is not for me. But I will respond. I will respect it. So don't overthink it. There's tactics of being funny. There's tactics of being valuable. There's tactics to do more stuff. All in my book, everything you guys can get. But the important thing here to come across is the philosophy, why the follow-up is so valuable, and how you should think about being annoying, and how much people should or shouldn't care about this.
Great. No, that's really, really amazing. And one last question. Most of the times that we are talking about cold calls, and we're talking about outreach and prospecting, but what, in your opinion, is the role of cold calling in customer development? How can we use it as a tool to understand markets and test hypotheses? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's an invaluable tool in that. When we started Elastic Sales, the company that was doing outsourced sales for B2B startups, here's what we did. We had this idea on a Tuesday morning, and we said, let's not waste time thinking about a name. Let's not waste time putting together a logo or a website. Let's not waste time thinking about pricing. Let's not waste time thinking, will companies really outsource their sales to us or not? What we did is we put together a list of a few hundred companies that had raised a Series B that we didn't know. And the next day I started cold calling companies, pitching them on the idea, giving them the elevator pitch, and letting the market educate us. And I would give out different numbers. Like we discussed, what should the pricing be of this? Here's what the pricing should be. One customer would be like, the pricing is $10,000 a day. The next customer would be like, the pricing is $10,000 a month. The next customer would be like, the pricing is $10,000 a year. Like I would try different pricing models and see what kind of responses I got. We allowed, within 24 hours, we went from idea to talking to potential customers, let them educate us. And we didn't lie. We were telling them, we're a startup. This is a beta program we're putting together. You might be one of the participating beta companies. Let me ask you, well, how many salespeople do you have? What struggles do you have with sales? This, that, and the other. And then I was just asking questions, getting educated by the market. Like cold calling can be an incredible tool in customer development, not just in the beginning, forever. Like one misconception is that we think once you have product market fit, it's like this promised land you've reached and you can never get kicked out of. It's not, right? You might have product market fit and then a year later you don't anymore because your market has shifted or the landscape has shifted or your customer has changed. You constantly have to check in again. So your salespeople might just be calling people to sell them on the product, They could also be calling people to be listening and getting educated on what the customer needs, what the customer wants, what's happening in the market. I tell people all the time when they have cold emailing campaigns that don't work, I tell them, call people that opened your email and didn't respond and ask them, hey, I sent you an email. It clearly was not valuable to you. I just need 1 minute feedback from an expert and I'll let you go with your day. What about my email sucked? Why didn't you care? Or when somebody responds and says, yes, I want to have a demo of your product, instead of just calling them and giving them straight a demo, use the call to learn. Ask them first, hey, you probably get hundreds of emails. What made my email stand out to you? Why did you decide to respond to my email? Learn from your customers what works in your marketing, what works in your cold emails, what works in your product. So cold calling can be an incredibly effective tool to have conversations that are context rich with customers to learn from them, not just to sell to them. Absolutely.
Steli, thank you very, very much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. And if you want to leave some final words to the Brazilian audience.
Yes. So it was an honor and pleasure. Thanks for inviting me to be part of the summit. For everybody that listened, thanks for listening. Brazil is definitely on my list of places that I want to visit soon. And if you love podcasts, make sure to go to thestartupchat.com and check out the podcast I have with Heaton Shah. If you like some of the content that I gave, just shoot me an email, steli@close.io, and I'll send you my books. And if I can do anything else to help, just always reach out. It's my honor and pleasure.
Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, guys.